What is going on, Ada Nation? Welcome to the Dapp Central YouTube channel. My name is Fareed, and in today's video, I'm joined by Marvin Burton, who's going to be the CEO of Maestro, as well as the CSO for Genius Yield. Marvin, good morning, or potentially good afternoon where you're at. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yes. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and give us a little bit more information surrounding Maestro. Now, Maestro is going to be a ISPO marketplace, but you guys have also recently branched out and you guys are doing some more developer based tooling and really providing, I think, a framework for developers to build and get started within the network. So what I want to do is break down the Maestro master plan, which was released not too long ago. But before we jump into all of that, do you mind maybe giving us a brief introduction to not only yourself, but also as to what Maestro is doing and providing for the Cardano community?
Yes, absolutely. So Maestro got started as like an ISPO marketplace and a kind of a node provider. So we've been running nodes and stake pools for a number of time now for helping other projects raise funds through their ISPO. And so we've got a couple of nice success over there. And since then, we've expanded into what we call our Dapp development platform. So this is kind of like a full-blown platform that allows people to build on Cardano. And so these are APIs or developer tools giving you the basic building blocks that you need to build any kind of Dapp on Cardano, right? So with our platform, you can build a DEX or lending protocol. You can build even a wallet or even like a blockchain explorer, an NFT marketplace. What kind of abstract away the complexity of the blockchain, give you access to data, give you access to events, submitting transactions, and many more other things. And so the way we are kind of end goal is to become kind of the complete Web3 stack for building on Cardano, and really help onboard this next generation of developers that want to build on Cardano but not necessarily know where to start.
Thank you for that great introduction. I think what you guys are hitting on is a need that has been unmet for quite a bit of time. I am a content creator, not a developer by any means, but I've chatted with enough of them to understand that onboarding into the Cardano ecosystem specifically has been very difficult right now. I know IOG, Emergo, and the Cardano Foundation have done what they can, but I think the more that we get, people that are not only providing these tools, but also collaborating and creating other projects such as Genius X and Genius Yield that have the experience that are then kind of leveraging their knowledge to build a stack, I think is key, right? So again, thank you for what you guys are doing. Now, let's jump into some of the questions that I personally have, and then I'll kind of turn it over to kind of lead the discussion here as to what you guys have been doing in the recent release of your Dapp platform, which I think is one of the biggest highlights that we're going to be chatting about as a part of today's video. So explaining this to somebody who may not be too technical, what is the key advantage, or what are the key benefits of utilizing or leveraging Maestro?
Yes. So maybe I'll step it back a little bit and explain like why this is needed, right? So we want, as a community, right, we want to usher in this new age of Web3, right? Web3 is a new paradigm. Web3 has a lot of new exciting applications and new exciting kind of ways of running businesses, running applications, decentralized application on the internet. But to do that, we need to kind of lower the barrier to entry and abstract away the complexity that goes around building Web3 businesses. And we've seen this before, right? In Web2 or the regular internet, in the 90s, 2000, it was quite complex for a business, to just build even a website on the internet, right? There were no frameworks. You had to run your own servers. You had to have a very broad range of knowledge and technical abilities just to run a simple website. Now, fast forward today, you could have a flower shop business, and in a few clicks, you could create a website on Squarespace. You could create an e-commerce website with Shopify or Stripe, and suddenly you can now sell your flowers online, not knowing anything about how the internet works or all the complexity, because they are building on top of frameworks that abstract away the complexity, and these frameworks are used for businesses to provide other services. And so for us, this is really kind of the end goal, is like, if we want to usher in this new Web3 internet, we need to get to a point where we make things simpler for the average user, average business owner, to build businesses. And especially, I think Cardano has a lot of potential because of its UTxO architecture. It can offer unique functionalities that really you cannot find elsewhere. And so we want to help Maestro. Really, our mission is to help usher Maestro, Cardano into the mainstream. And to do that, we need to abstract away the complexity, streamline development, and provide like tools for people to build on. So that's kind of like really at a high level what we're trying to do. And we're starting with the basics, right? We're starting with the nodes, with the ISPOs. Now we're going on with APIs to abstract, be able to read on-chain data. So we have our own blockchain indexer that indexes data, gives you access to your data for your application. We now also do like submission, and we can talk a little bit about how different options we can do for submissions. But then on top of that, you can start building higher and higher abstractions to the point where you don't even need to code anymore, right? You could potentially deploy smart contracts. You could deploy dApps, just plug and play like you do in Web 2. And so that's kind of like where we're trying to build from the ground up this full stack of Web 3 that could really onboard, next million or potentially next billion of people onto blockchain.
That's huge. And I think what you mentioned earlier is key, abstracting and making this as easy as possible to be able to then onboard people, right? Because the more people we have onboarded, the easier it is for them to implement whatever ideas they might have, right? For example, we have Project Catalyst, where we're seeing, I think, an all-time high in terms of proposals being submitted on chain. And that means that there's more people interested in what's going on in Cardano. But if they have a huge barrier, which in this case would be the ability to easily get access to infrastructure and development tools, that could prevent them or slow them down or even deter them, right, from onboarding or potentially delivering on their proposal if they were funded. So I think, again, the problem you guys are solving is huge. And for the viewers, I do want to just maybe point them over to your website very quickly, which is available at gomaestro.org. Now, some of the services you guys are going to be providing include indexed on-chain data, transaction management, real-time on-chain notifications, node management, developer tooling, as well as SDKs or software development kits, ecosystem integrations, and enterprise-grade throughput and support. So like you said, really full-rounded or very well-rounded. And this is, I believe, one of the few projects that I've seen taking this approach on Cardano. And so as an infrastructure provider, I want to maybe touch on a few different things because you guys are going to be dealing with the bigger scheme of things. How are you guys going to be approaching, number one, security, but then number two, data privacy, being that you guys will be integrated with so many different dApps?
Yes. So yeah, we take security and data privacy very seriously. As an infrastructure provider, we're kind of the middleware, right, between connecting to the interfacing with the blockchain and then interfacing with clients or applications. And the nice thing with blockchain is actually everything is public, right? It's a public record. Every transaction, every interaction can be verified and audited on the blockchain. And so you can think of us as more as kind of message passing, right? We read the blockchain, we kind of process the data, index it in a way that is more convenient for the developers or the application to consume that information and then be able to build their transactions and submit it, right? So we are not kind of everything we do, right? The interaction we do with our applications is completely auditable through the blockchain. And so that kind of gives us like this guarantee that we're not holding data or we're not kind of doing things in the background, because at the end of the day, we need to push that back into the blockchain, and everything we push from the blockchain can also be verified. So I think in that sense, the blockchain does a heavy lifting for us and provides the security and the openness, right, from that perspective. And we're just kind of the middleware that maybe just like builds a highway, so that data gets to the application faster and in a way that's easier for applications to consume.
Got it. Thank you for that. And I think that's one of the key things that we look for here, right, is not only decentralization, but transparency. As you probably know more than anybody, transparency is what builds confidence. And if people aren't able to trust your platform, then they're going to be less reluctant to adopt it or integrate it into whatever it is that they're building. Now, one other thing that I do want to briefly touch on is going to be speed and scalability, right? There's been a ton of talk about Hydra coming online. We just got some news about Mithril, which will improve the node syncing time between, people trying to get information surrounding Cardano and whatever hardware they're using. But when it comes to Maestro, being that you guys are providing an entire infrastructure or an entire framework, what pieces of that are there to ensure that you guys are able to not only handle Cardano's transaction load right now, but into the foreseeable future as the network grows?
Yes, that's a good question, and it has different multi-layers to it. So everyone wants speed, everyone wants high scalability, and in software you find out that that needs to be broken down, right? This level of optimization can happen at multiple levels. So I can maybe walk through kind of like the different areas at which we kind of provide optimization, right? So right now, the block size and the block propagation, we're kind of like we kind of have to adhere to the current performance of the Cardano blockchain. But there are many ways to make your Dapp feel faster, right? So when you build transactions, you need to kind of query the UTXOs of a user. And some users may have hundreds or thousands of UTXOs. And so that creates kind of a bottleneck in many frameworks to build transactions fast, right? So this has nothing to do with the blockchain speed. It has to do with just be able to handle that much data and be able to build your transaction efficiently. And so that's where we put a lot of effort in our blockchain indexer, right? And so here you're actually sharing a great endpoint that shows how we query data. And so we find some really neat optimization to query across multiple addresses of your wallet, our UTXOs, and we've indexed our UTXOs in such a way that they're extremely fast to retrieve them. And we believe that we probably right now have the fastest indexer that allows you to return to you those UTXOs the fastest. And so that's the first step, right? Getting those UTXOs fast and be able to build transactions. We also have around submitting transactions. So when you submit transaction, your transaction goes into the mempool, and then it kind of sits in the mempool as it propagates to the network and then gets accepted on chain. So we have something called turbo transaction. So it's a way of us leveraging our own stake pools to help kind of like increasing the gossiping of your transaction across the network, and so kind of help it kind of propagate the network a bit faster, and so help it get on chain faster. So that's around the submission aspect. And then you mentioned also Hydra, right? So no, these are more like layer twos, and so that's where you're kind of moving away from that layer one and moving into other abstractions. And Hydra is very exciting because it's just a protocol. It's just a system, right? But that system can be used in many different ways. And one of the ways is to maybe provide Hydra heads as a service. So most likely, people that use Hydra, like, either a micro payment system or even a DEX that wants to do like high frequency trading, may want to run their own Hydra node, or they may, hire a service provider like Maestro to run those Hydra node as a service to make sure that they're running, 24/7, 300 all year round. And so that's where we could continue to expand. And so depending on how the space grows, right? Because like you mentioned, there's also Mithril. There are other maybe layer 2 solutions that are coming in. So right now we're just keeping our options open, but our main focus is on speeding up your experience on the layer 1 of Cardano, and making sure that people can build dApps on layer 1 that feels very speedy, feels very responsive, and kind of like squeeze the best performance out of what we currently have.
Thank you for that. And this question just came to mind. I want to just quickly pose it while it's still in my brain. So I mentioned earlier, you are the CEO and co-founder of Maestro, but you're also collaborating with the Genius Yield team. So are you guys planning on potentially integrating Maestro services for some of these other projects that you're also kind of collaborating or assisting with as well?
Yeah, so we have a strong partnership with Genius Yield, and Genius Yield under the hood is using a number of Maestro services, for building transactions, querying the blockchain, submitting to the blockchain, um, and many other ways. And so it's a great partner to have because they're kind of pushing the boundary of testing out, new DEX architectures and new DEX kind of like functionalities, advanced order types. And so in a way, it challenges us, to think ahead and see, okay, what are some of the optimizations that we can help them with, and in the future, right, collaborate on bigger projects like like what we're talking about Hydra heads. Once that matures well, there's opportunity there to really collaborate and build an MVP together.
Awesome. Thank you, Marvin. And again, I know that that was not on the agenda, but I appreciate you fielding my questions. One other thing that I want to jump into will just, I guess, be a more general question surrounding partners and integrations. So I know you guys just recently had the Dapp launch, right? Which to me signals that you guys are finalizing things and you guys are finally up and running. Have you guys integrated with, any other projects that maybe you guys are not directly or closely connected to? If not, right, what is the plan to get on people's radars and to get those first few integrations that can then kind of set you up to integrate into more and more people as you gain the community's confidence and the community's trust?
Yes, so we are being used by a number of projects across Cardano. Actually, we're in very close relationship with them when it comes to coming up with optimizations and coming up with new features. So prior to this Dapp platform release that we announced this week, we were in a beta phase of our platform. In that beta phase, we worked very closely with a number of projects that use our services and kind of tested out our developer tools. And so we got a lot of feedback, and we ran that beta phase for about 3 months. And so we're able to collect a lot of feature requests and improvements. And actually, we're very proud to say that 100% of all the improvements and the new features in this launch have been a direct result of us interacting with projects. So we're very proud that we have people that kind of through word of mouth have used us and are willing to kind of help us get better and improve our services. We take a very user-driven approach to growth. On the platform right now, I think we have over 207 distinct developers that have signed up and created an account, and we're growing. Every week we have new people coming in. And what's really cool is we get to see some of the new projects on Cardano that are very early on, that very few people have heard of, that are coming into Cardano and often stumble upon Maestro and be like, okay, we're just new to Cardano. Can you guys kind of help us get our bearings? So it's always great to help current projects, scale and grow. But then it's also nice to see kind of this new, fresh breed of projects and developers coming into Cardano, especially given the last 6 months have been, really great for DeFi, and DeFi TV on Cardano has been doing absolutely amazing. So I think it's on the ground, we started to see more developers and more team coming in. And so Maestro is kind of the perfect place for them to really get started and get their app off the ground. Ideally, even half the time and half the budget that it took, maybe a year or 2 years ago, which was kind of one of the main, bottlenecks and pain points.
Got it. Marvin, I've got so many questions coming to my mind here, and I really hope you don't mind me asking them. So I've got another question here, and this is, I guess, just surrounding your interaction with the projects and people that you onboard, right? So are you guys a B2B solution where you guys are just solely dealing with other businesses, or do you guys maybe just deal with like individual developers that maybe just want to use your stack, right? Or is it something that I have to be a project in order to be able to actually get access to what Maestro is building?
Yes, so for now, we're very tailored towards developers. And I think a developer or business, for us, we see them the same thing, right? So it's someone building something on Cardano. They need those developer tools and those APIs to really speed up and interact with the blockchain. So yeah, it's mostly B2B or B2D devs that want to build. But as we grow and we build more abstractions, our goal is to get to a point where we remove the amount of code needed, right, to run your Dapp, right? So maybe later we can talk about Catalyst proposals, where we talk about how we want to provide a kind of plug and play way of offering smart contracts. Well, now you don't even need to. You don't need to run your own smart contracts, and you don't even need to write it. We may have like a repository of open source contract that you can pick from, and then in a few clicks you can just deploy that smart contract onto your website. And so you could be a Web2 company that doesn't know anything about Web3, that just in a few clicks could add that plugin, and then we manage everything. And that's a very common use case you see. For I was talking about e-commerce. We have things like Spotify, Shopify, or Stripe, kind of make it super easy in just without code to add that to your website. And so this is really the end goal is for everyone, but right now we are very tailored to developers of businesses that would use kind of our developer tools and APIs for building.
Awesome. You might have to coin that term, B2D, business to dev. I like it. You mentioned one thing here, which again has prompted another question in my head, and that was smart contracts. So for somebody who might be looking from the outside in and who may not necessarily understand the difference between what you guys are providing, or between the solution that you guys are providing and others are providing, could you maybe just break down, because I've heard of Aiken, right? And that's supposed to be simplifying smart contract development and the adoption of smart contracts, again, given the fact that there's just been a little bit of difficulty for people who are coming from the outside to understand the UTxO model, as well as just Plutus in general. So how, if at all, does what you guys are providing tie into what Aiken is building, or how does it differ from their solution as well?
Yes, so we're completely complementary. So right now, maybe the way to, and maybe a stack is the best, or like a pancake stack, or to analyze, to create an analogy. So the first layer is the Cardano blockchain, which is a decentralized set of nodes. Now and then after that, you have our infrastructure provider, and these are what Maestro does right now, is interact with the blockchain and be able to query on-chain data, index it, and make it available to the next layer. The next layer becomes the smart contract code. So on Cardano, you have both the on-chain code and then the off-chain code. So the on-chain code is a smart contract like Aiken. So Aiken is a highly optimized smart contract language like Plutus. And then in combination with Aiken, then you need this off-chain code that interacts with the contracts and be able to build transactions. And so Maestro kind of plugs into Aiken and those off-chain codes. So it kind of empowers that on-chain, off-chain framework to query and connect with the blockchain. And on top of that, then you have what people are familiar with, your front-end application, right? Your Dapp, your UI, and then your wallets. And so Maestro kind of sits in that middle layer. But our goal is to continue to expand, and so eventually probably offer contracts that we've already built and deployed, and people can easily kind of query. So those are called like managed contracts. And we're actually partnering with the company called Anesthesia Labs. These are really experienced smart contract developers on Cardano. They've worked on many cool projects. And so they're coming up with a great idea of creating a number of open source contracts. And that's actually one key issue right now in Cardano, is many smart contracts are not open source. So they really want to change that. They want to create kind of a library of just open source contracts that anyone can use and pick from. And that's actually quite common in other blockchain. On EVM, you have websites that offer like kind of a library of contracts you can pick from, so you don't have to rebuild them over and over again. And so we would be partnering with them to basically, you could just pick your contract and then it will automatically get deployed within our platform. And so then you could start using it. So we're also managing that extra layer, and that contract could be an Aiken contract, could be a Plutus contract, whatever smart contract language, we would be able to deploy it and manage it for you. so that you can just use it straight away.
That's really impressive to hear. And as you mentioned, we've heard of so many projects now going open source. I think that is the next wave, right? There's no need to rebuild the wheel every single time a new project comes out, especially when somebody's built a wheel before you that is probably doing things a lot better and a lot more efficiently than the wheel that you just built yourself, right? So I think leveraging, iterating, and building on top of these first few bits of contracts and first few bits of knowledge is going to be a key offering there. Now, there's one thing that we have yet to touch on, and then after this, we're going to jump into, I think, your future roadmap as well as your Project Catalyst proposal. And that's just going to be surrounding how people can get access to the actual Maestro tool. So let's say I'm a developer or I'm a project building on Cardano right now. What, if any, are there any requirements that I have to meet before I can actually begin to leverage the services that Maestro is providing to the general community?
Yes, so onboarding is quite simple. We have a dashboard on our platform that you can log in. So you create an account through your email, and then we have different plan. We have a great free plan that for most people, is gives you like most of what you need, especially in a sandbox environment. And then we have more like advanced plan, which we believe are extremely affordable and really kind of make it like a no-brainer for people to try it out. And so then through our plans, you can just query APIs. So it's quite simple. It's just a REST API interface that gives you access to all our services. And that's a standard for most developers. And so they would be very familiar with that way of interacting. And so through our APIs, they can then access, on-chain data, our turbo transactions, our event listener. So we have a transaction management system as well that gives you notifications. And so all of that is accessible through our APIs, which then, you have a fixed amount of credit per month or you pay per credit as you want. But I invite people to try the free tier. You can build a lot with just the free tier already and kind of convince yourself that, this is really kind of helping you achieve your goal and help, breathe life into your Dapp.
Thank you for that. I'm going to be checking this out. Again, I'm not the most technical person, so I'm not sure that I'll be able to leverage any of the paid plans just yet. But I definitely do know a few developers that I could pass this on to. And I always recommend that to anybody who might be watching this video who might not necessarily be a developer, but might know a team that is in need of this core infrastructure here that Maestro is providing. So that said, I think we've kind of covered a lot of the things that I wanted to chat about, right? But I want to maybe turn it over to you to number one, speak on what you guys are doing for Project Catalyst, but then to potentially just highlight anything that you might think that the community might find interesting or might need to know about surrounding Maestro in your recent Dapp launch.
Yes, so we have a number of Catalyst proposals. I have to look at the list here because otherwise I will forget. But on the Maestro side, we have something called the June Analytics for Cardano. So if people are familiar on EVM, you have this amazing kind of data science platform called June Analytics, which allows you to query smart contract data and be able to create like beautiful graphs of DeFi. And it's a great way to discover new trends and find like insights into DeFi, and give you a good sense of like how things are evolving, and even give you an edge as a trader to find if there is a token that's doing particularly well, or there's a pattern of trading that you've noticed and there's an arbitrage opportunity. And right now on Cardano, although all the data is open, publicly available, specific smart contract data in DeFi can be quite tricky to parse and comprehend. It takes a lot of data processing to be able to query, for example, like all the orders in a DEX, right? Or all the loans in the lending protocol. Get a sense of like what are the liquidations happening? What is the interest rate? What is the 24-hour volume of this token pair? What are kind of like the trades happening at the moment? So all that data can be simplified into a simpler interface. And so this proposal is around building an entire kind of blockchain analytics platform for DeFi on Cardano, giving you access to not just graphs, but building your own data pipeline, building your own graphs and kind of be able to discover new trends, learn about like kind of new data insights that you could leverage for your own trading. And so we think this is very powerful, obviously, for users, for traders, for even like hedge funds, asset managers. Now that DeFi is really picking up on Cardano, there's a lot of potential there for people for kind of leveraging and understanding the ecosystem and trade more efficiently. So this is where that proposal comes in. We have other proposal. Maybe I'll be a bit faster on the other ones, but the other one is more about building better SDKs and ecosystem tools that integrate with other frameworks. So Maestro integrates with Atlas, which is a PAB framework. It integrates with Lucid. It integrates with Mesh. And so our goal is to continue to expand our level of integration with all the great tools, open source tools in the Cardano ecosystem, to just make it very easy, to use those tools together. And that's really where we're going to get all the benefits. It's not trying to like reinvent the wheel, like you mentioned, but creating tools that are complementary, creating tools that are easily combined together so that we can kind of build a fun ecosystem for people to build. And then we also have what we call a Cardano Kubernetes Orchestra, and that's around open sourcing actually a big chunk of our own infrastructure. So we've built a complex indexing pipeline that takes you from connecting to the blockchain, indexing the data, and providing an API. And so through that proposal, we're actually open sourcing this entire pipeline end to end, so you can run your own complete indexer API for yourself, and that's great for decentralization, right? So if you want to have a hosted solution like Maestro, you can go through our service. But if you want to run your own indexer and have your own API and contribute to decentralization, you can do that through that proposals. So that's really, I think, a great contribution that we can give to the community. And lastly, we have one around build on Cardano. So we're trying to create a kind of grant system where we work with a lot of projects on Cardano, but they have very tight budgets. And sometimes we wish we had the money or the budget to help those projects build on Cardano. And so we're creating this build on Cardano grant system where we'll have multiple projects apply and say, hey, we want to use Maestro for X, Y, Z, but we need a bit of funding. And so most of that money from that proposal will go towards sponsoring those projects so that they can have the budget to build what they want and get the support of Maestro. So it's kind of like both getting the money and the support from Maestro. And we think that's a kind of a great way to especially onboard, smaller teams that have a lot of potential, but need a little extra push. And I'll finish with two other ones where we have partnerships with other companies that they've submitted proposals. So the first one I briefly talked about with Anesthesia Labs around plug-and-play smart contracts. So Anesthesia Labs will write all the open source contracts, and then they'll partner with us so that we can run those managed contracts. It's just in one click, you're able to access and interact with those contracts through our platform. And lastly, we're doing also a partnership with Optim Finance. So Optim Finance recently came with, they're building bonds. Right now they came up with ISPO bonds, which allows you to basically take a loan so that you can stake more into a stake pool and potentially get more token rewards, right? So if you think that the tokens you're going to get from the ISPO are worth more than the 3-4% APY you would get on your ADA, then you could and on top of that the interest of the loan, then you can get a loan. And so we're doing an integration through our ISPO marketplace so that in one click when you delegate, you can also get a loan and potentially delegate 5x or 10x your ADA.
Thank you for that. I think that was about 4 or 5 of them there. I'm sure you guys had a great time writing all of those proposals and submitting them through Catalyst. I dealt with my first 2, and that was a lot of work. So I can only imagine the amount of time and effort that went into getting all of these prepped up and ready. I will be sharing the links to all of them down in the description below for anybody who's viewing this that just wants to get a better idea as to, what Maestro is doing, what problem they're addressing, and what solutions they're providing for everything that Marvin just mentioned. And so on that note, Marvin, we are coming up at about 35 minutes now. I understand you've got a busy schedule. What I want to do is just give you an opportunity to maybe touch on anything that we have not touched on just yet that you think is interesting. And then I will turn it over to you to kind of just talk about some of the future plans and future vision that you have for the Maestro platform and the Maestro project.
Yes. So this week, like I think we mentioned, this week we released the V1 version of our Dapp platform. So that's really for us the highlight that we want to talk about is we've put a lot of work and effort into optimizing and improving this platform, and we really think that it's one of the most advanced and complete Dapp platform out there for Cardano, and it's really just the beginning. But we've introduced major backend upgrades, so you'll provide better scalability, better reliability. We introduced like better pagination through cursor pagination. And then we've introduced new features, right? So we just released the turbo transactions, which I mentioned, which allows you to get your transaction on chain a bit faster, especially when the blockchain network is on the load. We've added more bells and whistles to our transaction manager. So we have the Cardano's first all-in-one, transaction manager and monitoring system that allows you to track all your transactions in a dashboard and then gives you notification on those transactions, right? So you'll be able to know when your transaction is pending, when your transaction is on chain, when your transaction is rolled back. And that's quite common, right, in Cardano to have rollbacks or to have transactions that are pending for a while. And so be able to get real-time notification through your application allows you to really improve the user experience and make your application feel very reactive and very speedy. And on the blockchain indexer side, we've introduced a number of new endpoints that really came from our interaction with our clients. So we have, ADA handle, resolutions, but we also have be able to query UTXOs per payment address, be able to query assets within a stake address, and a lot of other ones. So I invite people to check out our announcement, check out our blog post that kind of details all the improvements and all the added features. And I'm sure you'll find something that as a project, either builder yourself could leverage and really streamline your development. We also have a very extensive documentation page. So the documentation can go in deep details of exactly how to access the endpoints, how to use them, and any other questions you can have.
Thank you, Marvin. Thank you. Thank you. I will definitely be leaving the link to the Maestro Master Plan, which is one of the most helpful resources for me, at least, to have caught up on everything that you guys have built. Again, Maestro really looking to be the full stack here for developers building on Cardano. And I want to close this out here, with just one last question touching on where do you see Maestro, in the next year, 4 years, 5 years? Like, what is the long-term vision for what you guys want Maestro to be?
Yeah, so we really believe that Web3 is a huge paradigm shift for the internet and for the world. I think we can all agree that the internet has changed all of our lives as part of the reason why some of the biggest companies exist, the biggest tech companies. But now that we have a bit more kind of like perspective, we see that there are issues with the internet, right? There are issues with like data privacy, issues with centralization of information, monopolies, and also in a world that feels more and more kind of like borderless. Sometimes the internet still has a lot of those kind of country-based restrictions, and so there's definitely room for a better system that is more open, but also more privacy preserving, and that empowers the network, empower the user, right? And at the core, this is really what Web3 is about. Is in a way, it's kind of like a network-owned, system. It's the users, the consumers, and the producers of information, right? Both run the network, and it's not centralized to like big tech companies. So our vision really is to usher in this new paradigm to create like a better internet that is more fair and more inclusive, and play a part in it, right? So any part we can play in this shift, we would be just very proud and grateful. And we went with infrastructure because first, that's where our expertise comes from. We have a deep understanding of running infrastructure and the technical knowledge that goes behind that. But at the end of the day, that's really kind of the middleware between people that maybe are less technical about Web3 and then interacting with the blockchain. So we want to become this abstraction that people can leverage and kind of lower the barrier to entry for anyone coming onto the blockchain. And at the end of the day, you know, when we onboard the next billion users, they will not care what blockchain we're on, right? They will just want an application that works and that provides functionality. And so our goal is to build abstractions that solve real world problem, provide real services to businesses and everyday people. And we picked Cardano because we think Cardano has made very intentional design decisions in the architecture, which allows you to do certain types of applications and features that you can't find anywhere else. And we see it as we work with different projects, you know, from Optim Finance and JobSpot and Genius Yield. Like these projects are building applications that aren't just novel, but they're also like unique to the Cardano architecture. And so they're really leveraging what the UTxO model is really good at. And so if we can play any part in helping, you know, these applications get in front of more users and become successful, you know, I think that will make us very proud. So another way I like to say is like, you know, when you're trying to build a building, we're providing, you know, the cement, we're providing, you know, the steel. And so you still need an architect, you know, to come with a vision and build like this beautiful building. We're here to like with the pickaxe and the shovels to help you, you know, get your dream, you know, come to life.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it here from Marvin Burton himself, CEO and co-founder of Maestro.org, providing you and the community, if you're a developer, with all the tools and infrastructure that you need to get your project up and running on the Cardano network. If you guys are interested in finding out more about Maestro, I'll be leaving the links to all their socials, including Twitter, down in the description below. Make sure to go ahead and check out their latest articles surrounding their Dapp platform, which has just gone live, as well as their master plan detailing their entire vision and what they plan on offering for the entire Cardano community. Again, Marvin, I really want to thank you for your time. I'm looking forward to seeing the integration of the Maestro platform into more and more dApps, especially as the ecosystem matures. And if there's ever a time where I can be of use to you, you know, my platform is open. And again, I just look forward to speaking to you and just keeping in sync as to what you guys are doing here for the Cardano community.